This is how it works. Vasana arises from samskara. No samskaras, no vasana. So all these Chaita Dharmanam, this means the Hare Krishna mantra removes all the samskaras from the chitta. And once the samskaras are removed from the chitta, then the false ego is purified. That's why he said when the chitta is purified, the false ego is purified. Ahankara. Ahankara means who I am. Identity. Who am I? I am body. We will continue to think I am body, man, woman, etc. as long as our chitta is contaminated. Because it has samskaras. And as long as there's samskaras, as soon as you meet the object, then the vasana, desire arises. It's like, you can think of an analogy, I don't know, came to mind. You have a pot of water. It's just water. And nothing's happening. But then you put some heat under the pot of water, on a stove, on the chula. And pretty soon, vapor starts rising. It starts boiling. The water starts boiling and some vapor. You know vapor? Some clouds and water vapor is coming out. And pretty soon the water disappears. Right? So this vapor is the vasana. The water is the samskara. As long as nobody puts any water fire under the water, it doesn't make any vapor. So that was Vishwamrita Muni's problem. Vishwamrita Muni was a great Muni. He was totally in a sense control by his tapabalam and meditation. He got power. Blessing of Krishna, blessing of Paramatma. As he performed yoga according to the Shastras. So he got blessing. But yoga only pacifies the senses, it doesn't purify them. You can control them, but not forever. Because the samskaras, which is the platform of activity, are not removed. So when he heard some ankle bells, he heard ankle bells of Menaka, prostitute, and because he was a king, he had so many samskaras stored in his chitta for sex life that were not removed by yoga, were not removed by meditation. So jing, 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 oh, jing, jing, jing. That sense object, tinkling of ankle bells, entered his ear and it went across his chitta like a laser. Ankle bells, ankle bells, ankle bells, ankle bells, ankle bells, ankle bells. Do you have any samskaras for ankle bells? Boing, wife. Oh, wife, ankle bells. Then the ankle bell, that sound drops into that samskara, wife samskara, boing. And it hits that samskara for wife, which means enjoyment, mitun. Then the ankle bells, boing. Then once the object contacts the samskara, then rising from the samskara, the vapor, vasana, calm vasana, the desire to enjoy. He opened his eyes. 60,000 years of meditation, controlling his senses for 60,000 years. We can't control our senses for 6 hours. We wake up at 3 o'clock and by 9 o'clock we'll go crazy if we don't eat something. We can't control our senses for 6 hours. Okay, we have breakfast, we have nashta at 9 o'clock and lunch is at 3, which is very healthy. 6 hour gap between meals. But all of a sudden at 12 o'clock comes, I need a little snack. Few potato chips and this, that. Not because we're hungry, not because we need it, but because we're not Krishna conscious. Our minds are disturbed. So this is something, so this chitta is this is that reflection. So when that chitta, so Lord Chaitanya said, purify this chitta, which means chanting will remove all these bhog samskaras, which will take all the kama vasana with it. And then they will be replaced by desires to chant, some tendencies to chant, tendencies to serve, tendencies to do puja. That's why you see you have a child, you have 5 children. One child, he's 2 years old, he rings the bell, goes ding, 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 ding. And then you say, wow, look at my son, he's a natural pujari. And he takes the peacock feather and he goes, and all of a sudden he goes, hey, he's making an offering. And everyone's saying, why is he so naturally inclined or instinctively inclined to do puja? He's only 2 years old. Because in his last life he did so much puja. He may have even been a pujari, so he has heavy samskaras. So he's never seen any objects of puja till he was 2 years old. Because you never had a temple in your house until he was 2. He was just crawling around your apartment down in Chandi Chowk. And you finally got a big house in GK and built a temple. And then you became a Hare Krishna, so you had a temple room, and you had a peacock fan, and you had chamara, you had achman bell, you had ganta and achman. He never saw these objects. So he never manifested his samskara of being a pujari. You follow? So now he's 2 years old, 5 years old, and he crawls in the temple room. Oh. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, put down that bell. The mother runs in and says, "Oh, put down that bell." But he's actually, by contacting that object, that ganta, that bell, he touches that object, then it goes, all the cross chitta, puja, archana, last life. I had a temple, I did puja. I was a pious Hindu, or whatever. Or I was a pujari, even better. And then it goes, then from that comes vasana. Jing, jing, jing. Oh, I like this. I want to do something. But he doesn't know what, because he hasn't developed so much. The mother, hey, put that down. And he puts it down. And then he's playing, then he crawls back again and goes like this. Hey! Because he has a tendency to ring that bell. Because he has a samskara. The mother, hey, put that bell. Rather than understanding that this is his inherited nature, it's in his chitta. She should encourage him, give him bell and achman cup and everything. Give him his own puja set. And let him develop that bhakti samskara. So this is the chitta. So this, Lord Chaitanya, we have to purify the chitta. So the greatest example of pure chitta is the gopis. They had the purest consciousness. The Braja gopis had this gopika chitta, or gopi chitta. The gopis' consciousness. Because they're not thinking anything. They're not thinking anything of their material bodies. They're never thinking of it. They have no thought about their material existence. They're never thinking about their material bodies. And all of us, most everyone, our dearest possession, the dearest possession to all of us is our material body. But the gopis never even think about it. When Krishna calls them with the flute, they don't even have any consideration. They're not even thinking about the body, because they're so much absorbed in thinking of Krishna. They forget how to dress properly, one earring, or one lipstick on one lip, or whatever. Then families. The gopis, they don't even care for their husbands or their children. And ordinarily, a young woman, a young bride, Gopa Vadu. Vadu means a young married bride. A newly married woman is called a Vadu. Gopa Vadu means the newly married wives of the Gopas, the coward men, the gopis. Lalita, Vishaka, Radha, they have husbands. Abhimanyu is her husband. But the gopis, they don't have any thought. They don't even care about their husbands or their children, if they have. And of course, most of them don't. But the older, the ones in Vatsalya Bhav. But for us, for a wife, her husband and her children are the dearest possessions they have. They can't think of anything more dear. And the gopis, sure they. Because their consciousness is full of Krishna. The gopis are the best example of perfect Krishna consciousness. Their chitta is completely pure. It's filled with Krishna. And then, even this world, they don't even think about this world. They don't even think about the afterlife, or we should do some puja, or what's in the next life. They're only thinking of Krishna. And this is how to purify the consciousness, to always think of Krishna. Now, our minds and hearts, our consciousness is very much attached to this material body and to our family. We're attached. Our consciousness is absorbed. Our mind, our heart, our chitta is absorbed in our bodies and our families, and actually it's a source of great pain. Because all material objects and all material persons are simply illusory, temporary. So the whole idea of this verse is that the conclusion is that we should transfer our consciousness by filling our chitta with spiritual activities and spiritual samskars. We should transfer our consciousness to Krishna. So our mind and heart should always be absorbed in Krishna. And who is Krishna? He's a reservoir. He's a reservoir of all beauty and pleasure. And if we fix our minds on Krishna, we fix our hearts on Krishna, then we can swim in an unlimited ocean. We can swim in an unlimited ocean of transcendental bliss. And Rupa Goswami says in one place in Nectar Devotion, or this is mentioned in one purport I read in the Bhagavatam, I think it's 11th canto maybe, doesn't say where it's from, it just says, Rupa Goswami said that a devotee should have the courage means the vira ras, a devotee should have the strength of the courage to reject, to give up and to let go and to reject anything which blocks or impedes his progress in spiritual life. Anything and anyone who are blocking or which is blocking our spiritual progress should be eliminated, just eliminated. And this is what the gopis did. Swajanam, dustyajam, swajanam, aryapatam chahitva. Uddhava Mahashaya glorifies the gopis. The gopis are young married ladies in Vrindavan. But it says, dustyajam, swajanam. They rejected their swajan. Swajana means their own relatives, their own people. They just, tyaj. Yadustijam swajanam aryapatam. Arya, and Prabhupada defines Arya as one who is advancing spiritually. A human being who is advancing in spiritual realization or God realization is called an Aryan. It's not some name for some special race. It's a consciousness. So the Aryapat is that path of spiritual life or the path of Dharma. So Dharma means sati Dharma, the proper code of behavior and activities for a married woman. So Aryapatam Chahitva. Religiousness, religious conduct, and Dharma, all of Dharma, Hitva means that they just destroyed it, they rejected it, they threw it away. Why and how? Because they are completely attached to Krishna. So the gopis are the ideal example, the perfectional example of pure consciousness. Cheto Darpana Marjan. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us how to purify our consciousness by chanting the holy name of the Lord. So in this verse, Kapila Muni is pointing this out to us about this consciousness. When we become Krishna conscious, then everything is purified. So that's why Lord Chaitanya said, if you purify the chitta, everything else is purified. Once the chitta is Chaito Dharana Marjan, that's why he said, he just started there. He attacks that, the chitta. Remove all these material samskaras and kamavasana goes with it. Then if the chitta is pure, then the false ego, the ego becomes pure. Who am I? I am Krishna's servant. Then if the ego is purified, then the buddhi becomes purified. If hankara is pure, then buddhi becomes pure. Buddhi is intelligence. And intelligence means discrimination. So once I realize and purify my ego and chitta, that I'm Krishna's servants, aham mameti. Aham means I am Atma. Aham Brahmasmi. Jiva Swarupaya Krishnara Nityadas. I am Krishna's eternal servant. This is called pure ego. Now that pure ego, that conception purifies the next layer of the covering the Atma, which is the buddhi, the intellectual faculty, which means discrimination, choices, making the right choices. So then the pure ego makes the intelligence pure. And when the intelligence is pure, it makes all the right choices. It discriminates. Anukulyena sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. When the ego is pure, then that purifies the intelligence. When the intelligence is pure, then the pure intelligence accepts everything which is favorable for Krishna consciousness, anukulyena sankalpa, and rejects everything which is unfavorable, pratikulyasya varjanam. When the intelligence is purified, then the mind becomes purified. The pure intelligence will purify the mind, because we're discriminating properly. And the mind's function is sankalpa and vikalpa. These are the characteristics or functions of the mind, sankalpa and vikalpa, which doesn't mean choices. It just means it picks up, the mind works with the senses. The senses pick up objects. The eye picks up form. The eye picks up some form. The eye sees woman. The man's eye sees woman. He picks up that form and he hands it over to the mind. Here's rupam, stri rupam. I see. Hey, mind, man, take this stri rupam. The mind says, oh, stri rupam. Sankalpa vikalpa. Accept or reject. So then, what you'll accept or reject depends on your discrimination, your intelligence. But when it's pure, then you reject the thing that's unfavorable. So then the mind will be controlled or purified by the pure intelligence, and the senses are just, they work under the mind's influence. They're not mentioned here. So once the mind is purified, then everything's covered. So this is some brief overview of the interplay and interworkings of chitta. Chitta is the first covering. The most subtle covering of the living entity is not the false ego. The most subtle covering is the chitta. Chitta is the barrier, is the layer of distinction, or the fourth layer of the subtle body. And sometimes it's described as an aspect of false ego. That's why Krishna didn't mention it in Gita. He only mentioned hankar, buddhi, and man. 3 aspects. But Kapila Muni, he's making it a separate aspect, which is usually described in other shastras. But sometimes chitta is an aspect of ego, but clearly chitta is actually a separate layer. That's why Lord Chaitanya is not saying hankara darpana marjanam. He's not saying ahankara marjanam, right? Lord Chaitanya could have said in his prayer ahankara. He could have said man. Just listen what I'm saying. Chaito darpana marjanam. He could have said purify your mind. He didn't, although we have to. He could have said purify your intelligence. He didn't. He did not, but we have to. He could have said purify your ego. He didn't, but we have to. But he did, because certainly Lord Chaitanya knows there's something called ahankara. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. And in Gita, Krishna is saying hankara and buddhi and man. Now that same Krishna becomes Lord Chaitanya, and he's not talking about hankara. In Gita, that same Krishna is saying hankara is the final point, is the most subtle point. But then he comes to Lord Chaitanya, he doesn't talk about hankara, you follow. He talks about chitta. Hey, wait a minute. What's chitta? I'm confused. Because Lord Chaitanya as a guru, he's considering chitta a separate thing, because it is a separate thing. And this is what he came to purify, is the chitta. By engaging us in Harinam Sankirtan, which is the most powerful purification of the chitta.